Welcome back to the 8-Man Breakdowns podcast. This is where we discuss all phases of the game of football, including philosophy, play concepts, questions, and more. Joining the show today is Coach Alex McMillian. Coach McMillian is the head coach at Madison High School in Madison, Kansas, where he served as head coach for the last 7 years and had a lot of success, which included 4 consecutive seasons of 9 wins or more, and then a 6-4 record this season. Well, Coach, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So first, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your high school playing days and what brought you into coaching.
Yeah, well, I went to Pretty Prairie junior high and senior high school all the years, and I was under Coach C.T. Young. We had a pretty solid program there at Pretty Prairie, and that's kind of what got me into coaching. Obviously, we had some good teams, and Coach Young, he was kind of a role model to myself, and he's kind of, he's the reason I got into coaching.
So where'd you go to college at?
Yeah, so I went to Fort Hays State University right out of high school. I had no real intentions of playing college football. About halfway through my freshman year, I kind of talked to a GA, which was one of my teachers, about maybe walking on, and I kind of dabbled with it. I was playing center at Fort Hays, and I think I was 5'9", 215 at the time, and I think the next smallest offensive lineman was 6'3", 270. So it was a tough adjustment for myself, and after that spring semester of football, I kind of decided that it wasn't for me, just because my body was taking a beating just over the spring. And then a few years later, they got new coaching staff, and my buddy was a punter, and he was trying to make some NFL or some CFL teams. So we went and long snapped and worked out every single day. And their coaching staff noticed my long snapping ability, so they asked me to walk on and long snap again. And it just kind of I did that for another spring semester a few years later, and still things didn't really work out. So I kind of called it a career football wise, collegiately at least. And then I kind of started. I wanted to get into coaching. I was my major was teaching and coaching, PE and health. So I wanted to start my teaching and coaching career. Luckily, my buddy Dan Rogers was at Victoria, who was an assistant coach there, and under Doug Oberly, which is one of the winningest 8-man coaches in that's ever done it before. And I was lucky enough to be able to join their staff from 2013 to 2015, where we ended up winning back-to-back state championships. I coached their offense and defensive line during those years, and those were a few awesome years for me, especially just going from Coach Young at Pretty Prairie to Coach Oberly at Victoria. Those were two extremely successful 8-man coaches, and they were able to kind of really get me to where I am today. And without those guys, I definitely wouldn't be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to jump back and ask about, because you played O-line at Fort Hays, talking about how you transitioned right into coaching the O-line and D-line at Victoria. Did you learn anything specific, as in blocking schemes or rules that were different? How did you kind of take that into the coaching the O-line for your first couple of years, or even how you coach now?
Yeah, definitely. I know at Hayes we did a lot of zone stuff. I feel like teaching zone blocking in 8-man is a little bit harder than it is 11-man. But I think the one thing I really got from coaching or being at college was, just the attention to detail. I mean, just why that little 6-inch step or hand placement or aiming points were so important. So, and I think the biggest thing for me going from that to Victoria was, and like I said, I'd never coached before I got to Victoria, and realizing, Victoria has been and still is one of the best 8-man programs in the state, and realizing that kids don't know that much about football. They're not always watching games on Saturdays or Sundays. They just play it because their dads did, or play it because they want to, play it because their friends do. And I remember my first week there, it was like a reality check for me, just because I was expecting this top 8-man program in the state, to these kids to be super football savvy and high IQ guys, and they just weren't. And as a coach, you have to learn how to, know who you're dealing with, and, know what kind of, kids you're working with, and you have to be able to speak their language, and, for lack of better words, dumb things down to where they can understand them, and get that to basically translate what's maybe extremely complex in your head and break it down and get those young guys to understand it. And I think that was, it took me a while to get that figured out, but I think that's, something that I've gotten a lot better as the years went along.
Yeah, definitely. And I like how you were saying, the attention to detail and just having rules in place. I think you can really simplify and teach 8-man kids, even the kids like you said that just want to play football with their friends or just to play to have fun. But you can really simplify it and do that. Use that attention to detail to help your kids, and no matter what the situation is, still make the play and block the right guy and all that. Definitely. Here, let me change gears here a little bit. So when you
Okay.
took the job there, as an assistant, your connection to Victoria with your friend, did you also teach PE there at Victoria then also?
No, so I was actually, Coach Rogers and I were both in a very similar situation in terms of like our degrees at Fort Hayes. And after my first year there, we kind of looked at each other, and we knew we were going to be pretty good the next couple of years just because of the kids we had. And we kind of agreed that, hey, let's get our masters, let's knock our masters out, because we both knew we didn't want to go back to school after the fact. So we said, let's get our masters and let's coach these dudes 2 more years, and it so it definitely worked out for the better for the both of us.
Okay, yeah. That's an excellent idea. Smart for sure. And then obviously with Victoria being right there by Hayes and you going to Hayes, that's yeah, ideal for sure.
Yep.
So you guys just kind of went to school and stuck around in Hayes and but coached, on the side basically?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, cool. And then you're there for 3 years, and then you applied and went out to Madison and for a high school PE and head football coaching position?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Obviously, I know a little tradition about Madison. I got to play them when I was in high school a couple times in the playoffs, and then they went on to win, state the 2 years after we switched divisions. We no longer played each other. But what kinda attracted you out there to Madison?
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting deal. So, kind of go rewind a little bit. I was when I was getting my master's, the HHP department at Hayes didn't have anything available, so I was just going to go to school and just get my master's. But then the oral communications department called me like 2 weeks before the school year even started, and I was somehow recommended to them for whatever reason it was. So I ended up teaching public speaking, oral communications at the college for 2 years. And I after I got that, and me and Dan both applied for the Victoria PE job, and he ultimately ended up getting that. And I was kind of seeing what was out there, and I put Madison at the top of my list, just because of their tradition, like you talked about. They won state in 2010 and 2011, and there was obviously some. I mean, they at least knew what success was like. And honestly, I applied almost just to like kind of get my name out there, just for interview experience. I mean, being a 24-year-old kid that had no teaching experience and no head coaching experience, I wasn't maybe expecting for it to work out. But it was crazy thing happened. A few weeks later, they called me back and offered me the job. And um, I'd be stupid if I didn't take it. And so I made the move to Madison in 2016, and fast forward 7 years later, I'm still here.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then talk a little bit more about that. So you taking over the Madison job at 24 years old. What's your first step? What was the next thing you did right when you got the job? What was the first thing you did when you got there?
Well, I mean, I remember coming down late spring, probably in May, and just kind of meeting, talking to the guys, and talking about the weight room and how important it was. And I think I moved here on June 4th, and I think we started weights on June 6th. And the weight room attendance was not there. I think our weight room attendance as a football team my first summer here was 25%. And I think that translated pretty well to why we went 3-6. um I felt like the kids weren't bought in yet. They didn't understand the importance of the weight room. We didn't have any, I mean, super strong kids. And we played a tough schedule. We played, I mean, St. Paul and West Elk and Sedans. All those years were really solid football teams. And we had to slowly start rebuilding. And so I think the first 4 years, I mean, we went from 25% to 72%, and then 72% to 81%. And I think we've been weight room attendance wise in the high 80s to mid 90s the last 5-6 years. And that's obviously translated a lot to our success as a football program, but it definitely took some time for those kids to understand the importance of the weight room and, kind of get those expectations figured out. But once we got those things going, I think it kind of was contagious and the kids bought in, and, we've had a lot of success the last few years.
So talking a little bit more about that, so like your off-season program and obviously, like you said, the attendance was down in the weight room and that translated to 3 and 6 in year one. But what did you do anything specific to get those kids to show up? Something that I know that I've done and we've done places I've been is, we'll have some sort of incentive of a t-shirt or a hat. But anything specifically you did to get those kids to show up, and put more work in or put the work in?
Yeah, it's changed a little bit over the years, but the last few, we have a spring meeting. I let the kids choose 3 weightlifting captains. They don't have to be seniors, just 3 guys that are consistently in the weight room and that they want to be led by. And once I get those 3 guys selected, I pull them into a room and I write the entire roster on the chalkboard, and I play NFL draft music. I have like a facilitator that does the picks, and they write their names on papers and they draft an entire team um, that they have to be in charge of the entire summer.
Yeah.
And then and it's kind of changed over the years, but if that team has 95% or better attendance in the weight room, they run 0 40s on the first day of practice. And then it kind of trickles down. So like 90 to 94% is 10 40s, 80 to 89% is 20 40s, 70 to 79 is 30 40s, and then 69% or below is 40 40s. So I think that's definitely worked well for us. Just that incentive of not having to run. I mean, I tell my guys, like, you guys only run as much as you guys want to. And they've kind of done a really good job with that. And I mean, there's been a team the last 3 years that ran 0 40s because they had a really good weight room attendance over the summer.
Nice. And then you said the weightlifting captains are selected by the players themselves?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. And do they just, I mean, for the most part, are they choosing somebody that's a fairly good leader or kids they look up to, or what would you say? What's making them choose those guys?
Yeah, and I kind of, I mean, I say, hey, like, I want you guys to choose someone that you look up to, that you respect, that is going to work their butt off in the weight room, and just someone that you're gonna look up to and want to be at the weight room more than you would be anybody else. And I would say, I mean, in most cases, there's only 3 to 4 kids that mostly get the votes, which is obviously a good thing. But it seemed to work well over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good thing. I mean, they're right there. Your team itself is choosing their leaders or identifying leaders, and then that's a good
Right.
thing to know before the season starts. But yeah, that's awesome. I like that. So here, let's go to the next one here. So this next question is basically just talk about what would you say separates your program from others? So something you guys maybe do differently than all the other 8-man schools out there.
I'm not sure if I do anything too crazy. I think in my coaching philosophy, the biggest thing I work on every day, or I want the kids to understand, is, I mean, any coach or any person in the state of Kansas could walk into a room and tell a kid what to do, and the kid's probably going to do it. But I really strive, or I really want my kids to understand why they're doing it. And if I can get a kid to do what I ask them to do, and then to understand why they do it, I think they're going to do it a lot more efficiently, a lot faster, with a lot more effort. And I think that really helps them understand the game of football. And if you can get, 8, 11 kids, whatever the case may be, to all understand the why behind what you're doing, whether it be offense or defensively, I think I think you just become a lot better of a program. And I think the success comes a lot with that as well.
Absolutely. I agree. Definitely knowing why they're doing it. I went to the Glazier clinics. It was a quote from Vince Lombardi, but the Howells Dodge coach said that. He said, a confused player can't play aggressive. That's an old Vince Lombardi quote. And so if they know why they're doing it, then they're going to be aggressive. They're going to do what you want them to do. They're not going to be questioning or playing slow or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
So here, next question, just kind of tell us a little bit about this year. Tell us about this season and what you learned most about your team this year and if you would change anything. But just kind of tell us a little bit about this year.
Yeah, we had a heck of a kind of a up and down year. We this group of players had not lost a regular season game. And there's obviously a little bit of pressure going into the year. We start off the year 2-0. And then a very good Lebo team was coming into town week 3, and it was kind of a freak deal. But my starting quarterback and defensive back was, and I'm probably an idiot for having him on kickoff team, but he's a good football player, and he just kind of, it wasn't even like, I don't even know how to describe it. He just kind of fell awkwardly. He actually had dislocated his elbow, and this was 4:30 on a Thursday. We were doing it was just a pregame. It wasn't even full speed kind of drill. Dislocates his elbow, so I basically have an hour tops to try to prepare our team to play a state ranked Lebo team the next night. And we ended up losing that game in a pretty tight game. I had a sophomore quarterback step in and did about as good as he could have done. But just things didn't work out for us that week, and he was gonna. I think my quarterback's gonna be out in that 6 to 8 week range, and so we weren't sure if we're gonna get him back or not. And we go to Maranatha week 4, and take care of business there. And district starts. We play Linden. So this is Linden's first year of 8-man football. They obviously had a ton of success in the 11-man ranks the last few years with sub-states and things like that. And they were undefeated as well. We were 3-1, and I made the decision that week going into practice that I had a very good running back in Bryson Turner. And he's a very good athlete. We were actually, I think it was like a Monday, kind of like a practice. We were trying to, I think it was actually after Monday's practice, the kids were just kind of throwing the balls around and things like that. And I noticed the Turner kid could, throw it. And I was like, crap, we're going to move him to quarterback. And it kind of turned into a
Like a
run heavy.
offense.
Yeah, like a wildcat
Yeah.
run heavy kind of. And he wasn't I've never asked him to read an option before, but he kind of figured that out. But it turned into more kind of, I would call an option play, and I would put in keeper give. And but he's, single-handedly beat Linden. Linden ended up going to the sub-state round. So we ended up beating them, which is a huge win for our program. And being able to hand Linden their first 8-man loss is a cool thing to say, I guess. And then so we ended up going to Care Paravel the following week, which is another crazy good program. This is their first year of being CASHA regulated, and I don't remember the exact score of the game, but we ended up winning, I think, like 86-72 in a crazy game. The Turner kids scored, I think, 10 touchdowns. I told the Turner kid about halfway through the Linden game. I pulled him aside at halftime and I said, dude, I'm gonna put the burden of our season on your shoulders. And he looked at me and he understood, and he looked forward to that challenge. And man, I don't remember what his stats were between those two games, but they were, something astronomical. And kind of towards the end of the Care Paravel game, he kind of said his foot was hurting. And then we traveled to Burlingame in a huge district game. We've had a lot of great battles with Burlingame over the years, and he gets dinged up. The foot was just almost too much, and he gave me everything he had, but unfortunately we didn't win that game either. And then we Chase County comes to town, and we sat Turner out just because he was hurt. He wanted to play, but we knew he wasn't ready for that. And we did have our quarterback back at that point, but it was just too much to. Chase County was obviously a very good football team as well. And then by week 9, we ended up having both of them back for Oswego, and ended up beating Oswego in a playoff game, and a very good game with there. They were okay with being a 3 yards in a cloud of dust team. So We ended up winning that game pretty good, and then we ended up meeting Little River for the third season in a row. Coach Ayers seems to have my number, but he's arguably the best coach in all of 8-man, and I love and respect Coach Ayers so much, and we gave it our all, but fortunately Little River kind of got the best of us, and we finished the year 6-4.
That is definitely an up and down season, but that's just the random injuries that you have and the way you guys had it, that a dislocated elbow on a Thursday of practice, and then but I liked your transition to putting the Turner kid at quarterback and doing some wildcat like single wing style stuff, and well, that was going to be my question about that though. Was the Turner kid, was he chosen like as a weightlifting captain in the summertime then, I'm assuming?
Yeah, he's been a weightlifting captain, I think, his junior and senior year. He's been a staple in the weight room, one of the hardest working kids I've ever coached, and he's not a super vocal guy.
Mm-hmm.
He knows. I think we went when Chase County came to town week 8 or whatever it was, and Turner wasn't playing. Like obviously Turner is a game changer type kid, but I think his just leadership and like the kids not be able to see how hard he plays and how hard he runs and all those things. I think that was just as important to having him on the field. So, yeah, that was a big loss for us in terms of losing him for a couple games. But yeah, he's been a weightlifting captain and one of the hardest working kids I've ever coached.
Yeah, I mean, I was assuming that too, since when you said that, you said you might have to put the burden on him or whatever, and he was more than welcome to take on the challenge, and but that's awesome. And I'll argue this with anybody, but I think you guys for sure had the toughest district in all of 8-man, 8-man Division I, 8-man Division II, because and I know that Care Perivale that week 1 when they played Axtell, they were beating Axtell at halftime, and then Axtell kind of got things going in the second half, but yeah, Care Perivale might have. They didn't even make the playoffs, right? Didn't they get 5th in your district?
Yeah, correct. I think Care Perivale, I mean, I think is a 1 or 2 in most other 8-man districts.
Absolutely, yeah. If
So
not one,
just
if not one, definitely 2
yeah,
or 3 somewhere. I mean, they're definitely no matter what a top 2, 3 district team, and yeah, 99% of the districts out there for sure. Yeah, but yeah, and then like you said, you guys had Linden first to 8-man, and then obviously playing Lebo with the when your quarterback gets his elbow hurt before, and that kind of stinks too because I'm sure Lebo was motivated. Isn't that kind of a not necessarily a rivalry game maybe, but a close. Aren't you guys pretty close to each other?
yeah, we're about 45 minutes away from each other, and we've had some battles over the years, and there's a couple years we didn't play them, and they had a lot of success, and we were sharing league titles with them, and so I think the kids were, I think both sides were definitely obviously looking forward to it, but when your quarterback goes down the 4:30 on a Thursday before the game, it was a very tough thing to try to I mean obviously as a coach you don't want to like show a ton of emotion and but when that something like that happens to a player like my quarterback, it was hard to keep the troops going and get the kids motivated to, not that the kids weren't motivated, they were just maybe weren't as confident as they were going into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. In 8-man, you get one guy hurt and you got to move guys around. Obviously, that doesn't help, especially an hour left to practice for the week and you got to turn around and play a game. I mean, that's tough to manage a game plan in that tight a window. But so
Yeah.
here, let's go into the next one then. So, what do you look forward to most going into next year?
Well, a couple weeks ago, actually a little bit longer than that, a month or two ago, me and my wife decided that we wanted to move back towards the Hayes area just to be closer to friends and family and things like that. And I threw out a feeler email. I basically emailed um, every town within a 20-30 mile radius of Hayes, and um, I think I sent an email out, and then a little over a week later, Coach Stevenson resigned at Plainville and took the TMP job, and um, they asked me to come up for an interview, and I I did, and I ended up going in for a second interview, and then I ended up they offered me the job a couple Fridays ago, so I got to accept the job at Plainville High School, and I'm making the big jump from 8-man to 11-man, which it's obviously very exciting. A little nervous about it, but that's kind of comes with the territory. But yeah, I'm excited for the opportunity. I've got to watch some of their YouTube film and whatnot, and I'm excited that the the Plainville community seems very excited. I'm very excited, and I'm looking forward to getting started.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's awesome. And is that where you met your wife then? In Hayes at college?
Yep. That's where we met.
Okay, so that makes sense. That's why Hayes area is kind of closer to home for you. And so, kind of just talk about your transition or translation of your 8-man schemes going into 11-man. What are you looking at? What's your plan? Just talk about your next step here going up to 11-man.
Yeah, and I don't really. I mean, obviously, just from what little film I've watched, I know we will have some size up front. But outside of that, I'm still kind of trying to figure out what I'm going to be trying to do offensively and defensively. Offensively, I think the transition will be a little bit easier. I think over the years I've kind of morphed my offense into I started off as like your traditional live formation, double tight kind of guy and options kind of stuff, power, gap run, and kind of transitioned to kind of a pistol gun with the H back, and I kind of like how multiple and you can get a lot of different looks and do a lot of the same things and that you can I formation. So we kind of morphed to that the last few years at Madison, and so I think I would definitely transition to something like that in the 11-man game. And defensively, I think we're a 3-2 cover 2 team here at Madison, and I think the 3-4 and the 11-man transitions well to that. So I think we're going to start with that and kind of see where things go. But honestly, it's going to kind of come down to our personnel. I mean, depending on what our strengths are, and finally getting to see these guys in person and seeing doing some actually football specific stuff. It probably won't really come into effect until I actually get to see that and kind of figure out what's going to be best for our guys, and kind of go scheme wise from there.
Do you know if you have assistant coaches on board already? I'm assuming they got some coming back.
Yeah, but Justin Casey and Ryan Becker, they've been there for 12 years. So they've been there for a long time. Justin is Jared Casey's older brother.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
So it's kind of a cool little connection there. But
Yeah.
no, they've been there for years, and I think once I got to meet the guys in the second interview, and I definitely made me feel a lot better going into it, just knowing how good of a assistant coaches they were.
So do you know how many kids are coming back, or like what specific pieces you got coming back, or how many kids you'll have out?
Yeah, so I think they had 5 seniors graduate, or they're going to have 5 seniors graduate. I think 3 of them they said were hurt a majority of the season. They're graduating a very good fullback linebacker type kid. So I think we're going to have a ton of experience coming back, which is obviously very encouraging. I think our strength right now is our size up front and the offensive defensive lines. I think they had a freshman starting at center, which is kind of insane. But so that's obviously very encouraging. But yeah, when you're our league, the MCL, you have your Nortons and Smith Centers and Peaburgs and TMPs, Russells. You play a lot of really quality opponents, and they started the season 0-5. But then they did really well throughout their 1A district schedule and ended up kind of beating Trinity Catholic in the first round of the playoffs, and ran into the buzzsaw of Conway Springs, which they've that's a very quality program as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to playing those schools, and it's kind of the opposite of 8-man to some aspect. When sometimes you're and you might be able to relate to this, where you're playing 8-9 games and you didn't go past halftime, and you get to the playoffs and you're like, holy crap, like we're about to play a full game. You don't know how your guys are going to react. So I'm looking forward to getting those hard kind of see how our guys respond to adversity, and kind of see where their heads are at. But I think from what I was told last year, they never hung their heads, and they look forward to the next week. And that says a lot about the culture of Plainville.
Yeah, coming from a tough league like that and having your conference games or non-district being tougher opponents, and I mean, obviously they're used to that, but playing those solid teams, obviously that's going to prepare them for the postseason too. But yeah, like you said, having a lot of experience coming back, that'll help, and then the assistant coaches that you talked about being on board. But yeah, that'll be awesome. You think you'll have I don't know, what's the ballpark? 30, 40 kids?
I'm gonna say about 30. I think they said Natomo is gonna bring over, in that 3 to 5 kids. So I'm hoping we're gonna be in that 30 to 35 range, numbers wise, which we've been at Madison, we've probably averaged 26 to 20, yeah, probably 26, 27 kids the last few years. So, we're adding 3 guys to the field, but, I think that 30 to 35 will be a good number for 1A football.
So here, let's go to the very last question here. Biggest piece of advice to upcoming football coaches, what would you say?
I think, and here's where I went wrong. I was kind of that 24-year-old stubborn coach that, like, I wanted to learn the hard way. I wanted to, take my lumps. I wanted to, I didn't want anybody's help. I wanted to just do everything myself and learn the hard way. And looking back, especially, and like I said, I'm just now joining the 11-man community, but the 8-man coaching community is unbelievable. And just the friends and guys I've got to meet over the years, and how open they are to just kind of helping everybody out, and that's truly awesome. And so I think the biggest thing I would have changed is just maybe me being less stubborn and reaching out to other coaches around the area and asking them how and why they do things. And I think just having that little extra guidance along the ways would have helped me along the way, just because I was so stubborn, and I didn't want their help. But looking back, I definitely, because just the people I've met over the years, and just now I can get on my phone and text or call about any coach in the state, and they'll be gladly give you whatever information you want, which is pretty darn cool. And so that's probably the biggest thing I would definitely change. If you're a young coach, just definitely don't be afraid to reach out to other coaches in the state. I know I try to be, now that I've done it for a while now, I try to be as an open book. And I had a coach in Nebraska message me last night, and I just sent him 3 or 4 films, and we just chatted and talked about films for a couple hours. And that's the coolest part about the 8-man community. And but that would definitely be my biggest advice going forward if you're a young coach joining the group.
I would agree. I'd have to say I was similar to you. I thought, and not only was I stubborn and I didn't want to ask for help, I wanted to find it out on my own. But I also, I thought I knew it all, and I was dead wrong. Obviously, I grew up and had some success playing and got to, the chance to play in college, but I thought I knew what I was doing, and no, I didn't. So I'm glad that I did the same thing and got out of my comfort zone and learned more and asked for help. And yeah, and that's the whole reason I even started doing this, was to try to spread, the 8-man community, or build it, and try to, just because when you get on YouTube or when you get on Apple Podcasts, and want to go listen to a football coaching podcast, it's all geared towards 11-man. And not to say that that's wrong. You can learn a lot from 11-man coaches too. I think the game goes both ways and translates both ways, back and forth. But anyways, yeah, that's why I wanted to do this, was try to help out other coaches too. So
I think you just joined the 8-man football chat on Telegram.
yeah, I did. Yep.
And that's been very helpful to myself. There's people I've never met in person, but we'll chat and exchange film, and it's been really good in terms of just getting to know how other states and schools and all that kind of stuff, how they operate, and scheme wise what they do. And so I thought the 8-man football chat was a extremely helpful tool the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just got on there, and I've just been going back and reading all the messages that I miss. I don't get the notification or whatever, so when I get on there, it says like 40 messages. I just read through there, and I'm just learning stuff just by reading other conversations going on. But
Right. No, this is cool, and I appreciate your you doing this and the time. And like I said, I would not be afraid to share your stuff on the old 8-man football chat, and I think it'll hopefully start growing from there.
yeah, I guess a good idea. All right, so Coach, thanks again for taking the time to come on. Really appreciate you doing this.
Now, hey, appreciate you doing this and getting the 8-man game out there. And it's awesome that people are taking the time to share the 8-man game and get more people involved with it.
Yeah, and thanks a lot. I know I stole you away from your family there, so, but yeah, thanks for taking the time to come on again. But yeah, thank you. And that's going to do it for this episode of the 8-Man Breakdowns podcast. If you ever have a question for me, Feel free to comment down below on this video or visit my bio to shoot me an email. If you've learned anything or enjoy any of these videos, please click subscribe and check out some of my other videos right here. And as always, guys, thanks for tuning in.